The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine.
The one and only Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Now up on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, we're going to celebrate an anniversary that's coming up in 2017. That anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of the United States winning the Greco-Roman World Championship. And our guest today is going to talk about that anniversary. He was the head coach of that team. Steve Fraser, currently the chief of donor and alumni relations at USA Wrestling. Coach Fraser, welcome to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast.
Hey, thanks.
Now, let's just talk a little bit about your position now as you stepped away from coaching, even though you're still close to the mats at USA Wrestling. Chief of Donor and Alumni Relations, what does that all entail, and how much of a transition has it been for you to from going to the hyper-coaching situation to dealing with other people and, more importantly, other people's money?
Well, I love it. I love what I'm doing. I'm in charge of individual major giving, planned giving. Rich wants me to create an alumni fan club association. So part of my job is to engage our wrestling community more than we have in the past, of course, and our alumni. And then we have the LA Gala we do, in LA in June, and we have our victory tours where we parade our world or Olympic medalists around the country and try to promote them and try to create more interest and reach more people and expand our network of supporters. So, yeah, I'm having a blast doing this job.
As we record this, April 26, 2017, the U.S. Open Championship's coming to Las Vegas this weekend. What are some of the things that are now being planned from a position that you're at to say, all right, for fans and alumni that are coming to Vegas to watch, what type of events do you have in the works?
So the one thing we're doing is we've created, or we're in the midst of still creating, a VIP event schedule that will include all of our major events and all of our international major events. And so, for example, for Vegas, for our World Team Trials and our Freestyle Open, I've invited all of our VIPs and our alumni, actually, to be our honored guests at this event. And they're going to have VIP seating and VIP hospitality, and we're going to treat them like VIPs, like we should, because they are VIPs. And so we're going to try to establish more of these events. Paris, the World Championships, will be another event where we're going to offer packages for our donors and our VIPs, and just try to engage them better and more effectively, so that everyone feels more part of the family, and with that, trying to get a little bit more of a backstage kind of a feel for them, like behind the scenes a little bit. So that's one thing.
A lot of people are unaware that really before you came back to wrestling, between your Olympic championship in 1984, which we will talk about, and then coaching the Greco-Roman team to the World Championship in 2007. You spent plenty of time in and around business, in the business world, with Domino's Pizza. Talk about your experience with Domino's.
Yeah, so I was with Domino's Pizza Inc. for 10 years. Did a lot of different roles for them through my career. Everything from public relations to training to recruiting, and then finally in operations, where I was running. Just before I came back to USA Wrestling or the wrestling world, I was running 65 Domino's Pizza stores in Michigan and Ohio, and it was great experience for me. Learning how to motivate people and learning how to gather people with a mission, one mission in mind, to strive to be the best pizza company in the country. It's a lot like coaching, especially the national coaching position, which is is hands-on, yes, in the room, but it's more systems also. You got to gather all your, create lieutenants across the country and gather them and get everyone working on the same page. So I learned a lot from the corporate world.
As we dial it back a little bit, you grew up in Hazel Park, Michigan, wrestled at the University of Michigan, where you were a two-time All-American before making the AA Olympic team in 1984. Just talk a little bit about your time at Michigan. What was the era of Big Ten wrestling like back then?
It was great. I mean, Big Ten wrestling was tough back then. I mean, I don't know if it's as tough as it is today with all the other new programs that are in the Big Ten. Obviously, it's more competitive now than it was when it was just 10 teams. But it's always been very strong. And, of course, growing up in the Detroit area, Hazel Park, and then going to the University of Michigan was a dream come true for me. And I really feel fortunate to have been able to be blessed with that opportunity, wrestling for Michigan and getting that education at, arguably the best university in the entire country. Actually, they were ranked number one, I saw just the other day. Anyways, in academics. Anyways, it was a blessing for me and really, really set me in the right direction for my career.
What do you remember most about your college wrestling career?
Well, I remember getting my butt kicked by Mark Johnson my freshman year and not scoring a point on him for about 4 months in the practice room. And, I was a state champ, big stud coming into Michigan. I thought I was going to whip up the college world and realized that I had to take another big step up. So I remember that freshman year, tough, but I totally attribute that tough freshman year, not only Mark Johnson and the other guys that were kicking my butt up there, Mark Chirella, of course. But the academics was tough, and I really had to figure that out. And I truly attribute those struggles to the reason I was able to win a gold medal in the Olympic Games. For not those struggles, and those setbacks and those adversities that I had to overcome, I guarantee I would never have won an Olympic medal.
When you look at how your career went, what was the hardest part about your junior season following out? You'd placed sixth as a sophomore, and then you didn't place as a junior. I mean, what adjustments did you have to make in that situation from underclassmen and then not repeating the feat as a junior, and then going into your senior year going, all right, this is my last shot?
Yeah, so of course that sucked, right? So I was, like you said, All-American as a sophomore, and then my junior year, of course, I went up a weight class to 190 as an All-American my sophomore year at 177. And I went up, and, I can't tell you exactly, what the deal was, why I didn't win, but I got beat. I just plain got beat and didn't place that year. But that's been the kind of the story of my whole life and my career. I've had a lot of setbacks, and thank God I've been strong enough to overcome those things. And so that not placing that junior year gave me a stronger resolve to work harder, to do more my senior year so that I could achieve my goal. And I never did achieve my goal in college wrestling. I never did win the NCAA. The best I did was fifth my senior year. So, but again, strengthened my resolve to keep going because I knew I had something in me. I knew I had something deep down if I just figured out how to do it and trained right and committed 100% that I could make my mark in the sport. So,
how soon was the decision to train Greco-Roman?
I've been training Greco-Roman all my life. I wrestled all styles my whole life. Masaki Hata was one of my coaches in high school, and he had me go Greco, go freestyle, go collegiate style. And so as you may know, I was wrestling in both styles my whole career. Back then, the tournaments were always separated. So I could wrestle one weekend Greco in the Nationals, and then 2 weeks later, the Freestyle Nationals would take place. And so it was a little easier to wrestle both styles, but actually my goal was to try to make both teams. And I ended up making the Greco team and was scheduled to wrestle Freestyle the very next morning, weigh in and wrestle. And I decided, you know what? I made the Olympic team in Greco. I'm happy. I'm going to almost focus on this the rest of the summer and do the best I can in Greco.
When you look at the landscape of international wrestling from 80 to 84, it was the boycott in 80 where the United States and a lot of the free world, so to speak, didn't go to Moscow. And in return, the USSR and the Eastern Bloc said, all right, fine, you're hosting in 84. We're going to do the same. What was that atmosphere like going from 80, where there were a lot of pissed off wrestling people, and not just wrestling people, but athletes in general, to 84? It's okay, it's our turn to host. I mean, what about the degree of, I guess, anger and, describe the scene in that Olympiad?
Well, all athletes want to compete against all the best, right? So I think everybody was pretty much disappointed that we boycotted in 80. Nobody was for that. And then when Russia and company boycotted our the 84 Olympics, no one was happy about that. But you know what I remember, Jason, is I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know who was coming, who wasn't, because it was still a little bit up in the air, and you never know what was going to end up being. I was focused. I was focused on one thing, to being the best I could be, preparing myself to beat who's ever there. And, and of course, in my weight class, I had Frank Anderson. He was a 3-time world champion. He was there, and I had to beat him, along with quite a few other tough countries. So that was my attitude. I was focused on what I had to do the best I can and win a medal. And I let the government worry about what they were going to do with boycotts and all that.
You mentioned Frank Anderson. This goes back to the great Greco-Roman culture that the Swedes have. I know we just talked to Pat Smith on my Guillotine show, who just spent 3.5 months over there studying and training abroad with the Swedes. What was it about Frank Anderson that made him such a tough competitor and somebody you had to really know that, he's got the world titles, but man, what do I got to do to beat this guy?
Well, so Frank, very flamboyant guy. Frank was one of the most famous athletes in Sweden at the time. Him and Björn Borg were the two top athletes in the country. Björn Borg, the tennis player, of course. And then, but Frank, you'd see him in the tabloids, in Swedish tabloids all the time, dating this movie star, that movie star. Very flamboyant, long blonde hair, very powerful guy. His strength, among a lot of things, was his straight lift that he had. He was throwing everybody with a straight lift, the back supplé, right? And so anyways, that's what made Frank so great. I tell you, one of the things that motivated me was Frank beat the Greek the day before I was wrestling Frank, and I went back to the Olympic Village and grabbed the LA Times. I just made the quarterfinals or when it was, and I looked at the newspaper, and on the front page of the sports section, LA Times at the Olympic Village, Frank's picture was there in a quote. Now that he beat the Greek, nothing stood in his way of winning the gold medal. And he talked about how he was going to hang that gold medal around his racehorse's neck back in Sweden, or his Porsche that he had from his rearview mirror of his Porsche. I read that, and of course I'm like, okay, he's not looking at me as any threat. So I went to sleep that night kind of thinking about that, and just, what I did? I just focused on what I was going to do. I didn't worry about what he was going to do. I was going to be physical. I was going to be rough. That was kind of my style. I'm a grinder, and I was going to give him the match of his life, win, lose, or draw. he was going to know he was in a battle. And then, of course, I visualized me defending his best move, which was that straight left. And woke up the next morning, fired up, and this is our history from there.
What were you driving at the time? If he's talking about driving his Porsche.
I think I was driving an old beat up Ford Falcon. I don't know. I don't remember exactly which car I had, but I know it was one of the beat up ones.
Yeah, I'm just curious because, okay, Porsche, racing horses, and what's the guy from Hazel Park, Michigan driving? Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't a Porsche, I guarantee you that.
With that Olympic Games, it came, you win, Jeff Blatnick wins, Greg Gibson was a silver medal. We're talking Greco-Roman here, and was even without the Eastern Bloc and the Soviets there. What did that moment do for Greco-Roman wrestling in this country?
Well, I hope it helped. Martinez took a bronze too, Jim Martinez. I hope it inspired some young people and inspired some wrestlers to believe that if this young punk Steve Fraser from Hazel Park, Michigan could win a gold medal, that maybe they could too. And so, I don't know exactly, but that would be my hope. I hope I inspired some people. I hope we inspired some people, because that was a major breakthrough for our Greco program.
Yeah, and Jeff had gone through. He had told me a story when we were in Fargo a couple years ago before his passing. I was like, yeah, what do we're at the Turf, which actually burned down last summer. We're sitting there. I think he's having a dirty martini, and he's telling him, saying, what do you think of Fargo? He goes, what are you talking about? I trained here for 80 and 84. I'm like, really? See, and he talked about, when he beat lymphoma, and what was it like to kind of watch Jeff's journey at that time? And then, what has the wrestling world lost since his passing?
Oh, of course, Jeff was an inspiration. To overcome, I think it was Hodgkin's disease or lymphoma, whatever. I always thought it was Hodgkin's. But for him to overcome those things and win his medal was truly a great feat. And, he was an inspiration for all of us. And the loss of him was just devastating, a shocker. And Jeff and I always been very good friends. Even though we had a few fisticuffs when we trained together ourselves. But it's a big loss for us. Jeff Blatnick was a great Greco-Roman icon, and we all miss him still.
Now, following your Olympic gold in '84, around that time, a guy was coming through, one of the guys that wrestled at the University of Michigan, a little younger than you, named Rob Recksteiner, who went by the name Rick Steiner into the world of professional wrestling. Were you ever pulled in that direction by the territories back in the day after you win a gold medal? Be like, hey, you'd be pretty good at this.
No, but I can tell you this true story. I connected Rob Recksteiner, or Rick Steiner, his stage name, to the Animal George Steele. His name's Jim Myers, his real name. You may remember the Animal George
the Animal
Steele.
Yeah, he just passed away not that long ago.
He just passed away. Yep. Well, he's from Madison Heights, a neighboring city from Hazel Park, and he was the wrestling coach there. Trained a lot of good guys. Mike DeGane, one of them. Anyways, I connected Rex Steiner to Jim Myers, and that meeting, when I introduced him, started Rob's career in the WWE. I think it was at that time, right?
Yeah, I think he started out in the NWA. They all go territories back then. It was before it was the major ones, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Scott Recksteiner, or Scott Steiner now, his brother, also, they both wrestled with me at Michigan, or for me at Michigan, when I was the assistant coach there. And I just saw them in February in Atlanta. I went down on my way to Cuba. I stopped in and visited both of them. And they're doing great. But no, I never had anyone pull me that way.
So when you go from college coaching, and then when do you fully leave college coaching, go to Domino's, and then what drew you back in to Greco-Roman coaching?
Well, so I love the corporate world. I love building stores and sales and profits, all that. But what brought me back was, I started missing wrestling, and I used to dream a little bit about what it would be like to be back in, and instead of sell X number of pizzas, beat the Russians. And it just so happens when I started daydreaming about that a little bit, Mike Houck called me and said he was stepping down from the national coaching position. Mike and I were fierce competitors back in the day too, but friends after that and during that actually. But he called me and said that he was stepping down and asked me if I might be interested in applying for the position. And then that connected me with Mitch Hall. Next thing I knew, I came out invited. And the thing that really allowed me to make the switch was my vice president at Domino's. Because at the time, I wasn't sure if it was the right move. I was moving up in the company at Domino's, and my vice president said, Steve, why don't you go do that? If you don't like it, do it a year or so, do it through the 96 Olympics, which was that year. If you don't like it, come back to Domino's, we'll put you right back in where you're at right now. So it was like a no lose for me. And of course, once I came to USA Wrestling and took the job, it was great. And I never looked back from there.
Yeah. Like almost 20 years later, you're like, okay, yep, you're still here.
Yeah. Like 21 years, I think I'm here now.
Yeah.
21, 22. Yeah.
And one of the perks about living in Colorado Springs is, of course, living in Colorado Springs. I mean, what was it like to raise kids in that type of area?
Oh my God, Colorado Springs is the best. I mean, I loved Ann Arbor for sure, and I love Michigan. But the mountains, the sunshine, 300 days a year. It's just beautiful here. The dry climate. It was great raising my children here. It's great living here. It'll be hard for me to leave because it's just a wonderful place to live, as you know, because you were here.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I look at the weather. Yeah, Minnesota's a great place to live, but yeah, 300 days of sunshine sounds nice right about now, especially as it's raining. Okay, so we've got the backstory.
Hey, I can ride my Harley in the wintertime here on certain days. So that's really good.
I'll tell you this too, for those who don't know, the office schedule is based around, I think it's District 49's schedule, and that kind of contains part of Monument in the north side of the Colorado Springs Metro. So it could snow a foot in Monument. And if Rich Bender's house has got snow and Discovery Canyon High School is closed, 10 miles south in the center of Academy and Lehman there, it could be 60 and sunny and be like, all right, free day off.
We actually filed District 20 to be exact, but yeah, that's true. District 20.
Well, yeah, it's 20. Is it 49? Yeah, 20's up there, and I'm not sure which district.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm off on my. I've been gone.
I don't know where
years.
District 49 is, but District 20 is the northern district, where that's where my kids went to school.
Okay. So I might be confused. It's I can't remember which one it was. I know that I wasn't in that zone. I just know that it was up near where Rich lived, and it wasn't where I lived. So sometimes it would be 60, and we'd get the day off. So now we go into Baku in 2007. The year before, Harry Lester gets a medal. Joe Warren wins a world title. Jamil had a previous world championship. You've got these guys back. You got some young talent. You got some old veterans. And when you look at Baku 2007 going in, what were the expectations? And were a world championship type of situation? How realistic was that for a squad going in?
It was very realistic. I totally believed that we could win the world title. Would it be easy? Absolutely not. We'd never done it before on top of it. But 2006, we should have won it. We were like 20-some points ahead after day one, and almost people couldn't catch us, but they did. We kind of fell flat day two, and we didn't have enough juice to finish it, and we lost the 2006 World Championships by like 1 or 2 points to Russia. To Turkey. Turkey won it, and we were tied with Russia for second. And then, there's some backstory to that I won't go into here, but I knew we had a great team. And of course, then we lost Joe Warren for the 2007, so that hurt us a little bit. We definitely still thought we could make our mark, and so and things fell into place, and we did just that. We had Veering, who else? We had Durlacher, and actually we had Byers, Veering, and who was it? And Harry Lester won medals for us in 07. So, yeah, it was great. I mean, that history-making moment for our Greco program, and the fact we're getting together this weekend to celebrate is really a great thing.
Yeah, going back and looking at Baku, first time I ever left the country, I had to get a passport for that, and thankfully I've now moved on to a better passport picture. But we look at that team, and just from a lineup situation, Lindsey Durlacher finishing 5th at 55, Joe Betterman thrown in there as a late replacement for Joe Warren. He went one and done, but the experience there. Lester got hosed in a situation. I can say that because I was unbiased at the time, and against Farid Mansaroff, if I'm not mistaken. Had the guy on his back, they pull him off. TC had his career kind of reinvigorated by the reverse lift rule. Brad Veering made the finals, pinned a guy in the semis, and the flexing poster is still over to my left right now. Justin Ruiz ran in that monster weight class, and then we talked about Chocolate Chrome, Jermeel Byers. Looking at all the things that go in, there are some things that factored in that, of course, Harry getting hosed again. When you get a situation like that, how do you respond as a coach? They pull the guy off his back in his home country, in his own club, basically, and you just got to sit there and take it sometimes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is unfortunately sometimes part of the sport, and what do you do? I mean, it's water under the bridge now, but unfortunately, hopefully these days, I think they've got a little better handle on it. Sometimes it seems like, but sometimes it doesn't. But it's disappointing when those things happen, for sure. But it's life in the big leagues, and if you want to perform in the big leagues, you got to take that total control out of the referee's hands and not let any match be close. That said, that's a hard thing to do at that level.
One other thing that came up, and I'm working back in the media room, and there was looking at the team scores, and all of a sudden the Russians get an extra point somewhere. And then now, okay, if if things fall in line, and the Russians are pretty good at Greco just as they are in freestyle, if it comes down to a tie, the Russians would win the title because of more golds, and that kind of hinged on Mian Lopez of Cuba and Borov of Russia. One of the things that factored into that extra point was this wrestle-off bout that apparently gave an 8th place finish to somebody. It kind of broke protocol. Now we get into the Lopez-Borov part 2. Year before, this was not close. This was the Russian, quote-unquote, dominating the Cuban in a situation where the Cuban has been dominated since he was a junior. When you see that opening up, and it's like, okay, now we've got to make sure the Cuban isn't going to take a briefcase here. What type of nerves are going through you and the staff?
Well, a lot of nerves, because we know how sometimes that goes, and so don't think for a moment we didn't do some things backstage to try to prevent that, and especially when you see one of the top Russian officials in the back corner talking to one of the Cuban coaches. They don't speak Russian, doesn't speak Spanish, and the Cubans not speaking Russian, but they're communicating. You're nervous, and so we actually spoke to Lopez. We went in the Cuban dressing room, and we made it clear that hey, let's all know what's on the line here, and all we want you to do, Lopez, is go out and wrestle to your best. You wrestle to win, and that's what he did, and he beat Borov, and we won our world title.
And Lindsey Durlacher, the late Lindsey Durlacher, runs and jumps into Lopez's arms, and this is one thing that people that were there remember is how Lopez at 6'3", every bit of 280 pounds, just holding Lindsey like he's a little baby. I mean, it's like we all swarmed the Cuban. What was it about? I mean, and it was a ball draw too. It was like a 0-1, 1-0, 1-0 match. It was a situation where really the opportunity to set up the if the bout was going to get thrown, it was going to have to be in parterre, and it didn't turn out that way, the way the balls were drawn. And what do you remember about, everybody swarmed Lopez?
No, it was a great moment. I mean, it was a great moment for all of us. And that moment with Lindsey, and God bless Lindsey, we so miss him. And, we've always been friends with the Cubans. They've always been very fierce competitors of ours, and all up and down the line. And but at the same time, we've trained with each other a lot. And so I think partly the Cubans were happy for us too, and it was a great moment. And Lindsey, of course, can't speak enough about that guy. He was a great competitor and bronze medalist, and so close to winning another bronze medal. And what a tragic loss for his family and for everyone in the wrestling family.
One thing about that team also, and that Olympiad that often gets overlooked, is the role of the team leader. And John Bardis, who has been a great leader in business and represents the sport very well, he kind of turned the team leader thing on its head. He was in the sauna with guys. He was in there. It was not just like him, with the money guy that's saying, okay, here, we'll buy you this. He is in there in the trenches with you guys. What was it like dealing with John, specifically for those 4 years in that Olympiad?
Well, I'm glad you brought up John. John Bardis is the best leader and the best, and we've had a lot of great team leaders, but he's a wonderful human being, kind, generous. He knows the sport. He knows what it takes to win. He's a hands-on guy. You're right. He sat in the sauna with people that were having trouble making weight. He'd do anything that was required, and a generous supporter financially too. And of course, he's sponsoring this whole reunion in Vegas. And so I can't say enough about John Bardis. His leadership skill was the big reason why we had such great success in that quad.
When you look at the state of Greco-Roman wrestling now, Andy Bisick had back-to-back medals prior to the Olympic Games. We had a very good World Championships in Las Vegas in terms of getting fans out to support all three styles of wrestling. And when you look at the job Matt Lindland's now doing, an athlete you once coached, and now he's been taking the reins as the national team coach. What are some things that you've seen that Matt's brought to the table that are pleasant surprises as a Greco coach?
Well, I don't know if they're pleasant surprises because I know this about Matt, but he brings a mentality, a tough mentality, hardworking mentality, dedicated mentality that it takes to create a championship team. And so, Matt knows what it takes. He's one of my all-time favorite great champions, and so he brings that to the team for sure. He brings passion. He brings love for the sport. Matt Lindland, has got the right attitude to be the national coach for sure in our country.
Circling back to that 2007 year, that was the first year I really got to know about the program at Northern Michigan, where the training partners started coming along. This is, I guess, kind of a double-ended question in terms of the value of the training partner on these trips and what it was like for guys like Spencer Mango and Jake Fisher and those Northern guys that were training partners on that trip to Baku. I mean, is it a valuable finance to spend for training partners, and how much were those Northern guys that were once partners really benefiting from that experience?
Well, it's great. I mean, in my opinion, all the important training takes place long before the week or 10 days before the event. But you want to take a training partner with you that you're comfortable with, that can help you just fine tune the last 10 days, right? Which you're not doing a lot. You're tapering way back, but more so, I think it's important to have training partners at the World Championships, Olympic Games, because they get to see what it's about. They get to be inspired. They get a little taste of it as training partners, and that makes our team stronger. So that's what I really like about being able to have training partners that go to these main events with us.
We get to your coaching style. One thing that people always know when you walk into that practice room at the Olympic Training Center and like, all right, Fraser's got a grind match ready. I mean, let's talk about the genesis of the grind match and what really possessed you to come up with this and push the wrestlers through it.
So I used to do it at Michigan. Mark Terrell and I used to wrestle 2 hours straight without a break, and that's kind of where I learned what grinding was about. And then I just kind of coined it and made it a particular type of a practice. And the thing about the grind match, when I first brought it to the national team, Anatoly, the coach in the room, is like, why wrestling 2 hours? The matches are, 6 minutes. Why are we going 2 hours? He didn't even believe. He's from the Russian system. But what the grind match does for athletes and teams, not only does it, the obvious things, build this great base conditioning, right? But it teaches flow. It teaches you to relax, because you can't stay tense and tight for 2 hours. You have to learn to relax. And it's that relaxing and exploding that really is a great attribute that you have as a wrestler. So, and then mentality, think about it. You're wrestling 2 hours without a break, nonstop, nothing, no drink of water. Of course, we allow a drink these days because we don't want to get sued if someone gets dehydrated. But you go to drink and you sprint back. The mental edge that you get from training that way at the right times, is really powerful in developing you as a strong wrestler, in my opinion. And that's why I was always a firm believer in long grind matches. In the right times here, the other side of the spectrum is sprint matches, pummel matches. Those are so important too at the right times during the periodization schedule. So, but yeah, grind matches, I'm a firm believer that they make people tough and they help you to improve your skills at every position.
Which athlete did you coach that seemed to love the grind match more than others?
Well, shoot, I had a lot of people that I think loved them.
They're probably lying to you, Steve. They're probably lying to you.
They might be. But, Lindland, Bracken, Grunwald, Rulon, a lot of our great Veering, a lot of our great champions were sold and bought in to the grind match. That's important too, that to have a championship team, the athletes themselves, they have to believe and buy in and actually become the leaders of the team. The coaches can't just be the leaders. It's got to come from within. Every great team, whether it be wrestling or basketball or football, they have great athlete leaders. And so that's another thing that the grind match does is it helps everybody to become a team, because you're all doing this crazy thing that hopefully no one else in the world is doing. So you feel special about that.
What's the best excuse you ever remember hearing about an athlete trying to get out of a grind match practice?
Best excuse?
One that you just sat there with no.
I didn't listen to excuses. I didn't listen to any excuses. Probably the only way someone got out of a grind match was, they didn't come. They didn't show up, because otherwise they're wrestling no matter what.
You talked about Anatoly, and we can't mention the success of these teams without the people like Anatoly. His unique Russian personality, although I believe he's originally from the Azerbaijan, right? Yeah,
he's Armenian, but he lived in Azerbaijan.
Okay, and then of course Momir, who Olympic champion and killer mustache. And when you have the opportunity to bring minds like that into the American coaching system, was there initially any resistance to it, and what did those guys bring to the program that you didn't know that they were going to be able to do?
Well, Anatoly was here when I took the job, so he was already here. Mike Houck hired him. And then I hired Momir right after the Sydney Olympic Games. And what these two guys brought to the table were exactly what our country was missing. And so what we did was we dovetailed three philosophies together. You've got the Russian philosophy with Anatoly. You got the former Yugoslavian, powerful, technical style to the table, and then you got which I tried to bring was the grinding. We're gonna beat you down to a pulp style, and any one of those separately, I don't believe is great. But you bring them all together, dovetail them together, and you got a championship program. And that's exactly what we did. We all learned from each other. We all helped each other and believed in each other, and that's why we became good. And I got to say too, not just those two coaches, but the Chandlers, the Hermans, the Sean Lewises, all the other coaches around the country, the Andy Sarases, the Sheldons, they all were committed. The Antonellis, they all were committed to the plan and the vision, and that was really important for us to make the turn.
Anatoly's been here, almost 30 years. Did he ever learn how to use the copy machine in the office?
Oh my God, he used to frustrate me so he comes, Steve, can you help me with no, Anatoly, this is part of the job. You have to fill out your own paperwork and turn it into finance. I'm not going to do your paperwork. So he those foreign coaches, a lot of them, they just coach. They're different requirements in some of these countries, right? If you're a coach, you're in the practice room every day and that's all you do. You don't even have an office maybe. But in the United States, of course, you know how it is. You got to do a little bit of administration paperwork along with coaching. So he's good. He learned, but it was never his forte, I guess.
He definitely played this game. He hit me with that the first week I worked out. You helped me copy. I'm like, oh sure. And then I think Rich walked by and like, he got you. I'm like, what? He goes, oh, he hates that thing. So I can just imagine those conversations in his expense reports with Sanja downstairs. So just leave those alone.
Yeah, he's a champ. Great, right. Love him, Anatoly though.
All right, Coach, we've got a rapid-fire segment. We're calling it Short Time here on Short Time. 10 questions, 90 seconds. I don't want you to think. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready for it?
Okay, hit me.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Question 1. What is your favorite combination of pizza all time?
Favorite combination of pizza is double pepperoni, pineapple, and peppercini peppers.
You won the Olympic gold medal. What did you have for dinner that night?
Hopefully I had a steak.
Hopefully, okay. Question 3. Who's the best Greco-Roman wrestler people don't talk about?
Best Greco-Roman wrestler people don't talk about? That's a tough one. I would have to say Lopez, but they talk about him.
What's your all-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
Green. Lime.
Favorite video game of all time?
Pong. They don't play them.
All right. In their prime, without payoffs, who do you taking in a match? Carellin or Lopez?
Lopez.
Okay. What move would you rather have in your arsenal? The John Smith low single or the Jordan Burroughs reshot double?
Ooh, ouch. No offense to John Smith, but the reshot.
Because you can make that a high dive and score in Greco with it.
Yeah.
If there's one guy from history, whether it's a wrestler or a historical figure you would like to wrestle, who would it be?
Gilgamesh.
Who is your funniest teammate of all time?
Funniest teammate of all time? Wasn't Greg Gibson. He's pretty quiet.
Okay, so you gave me who it wasn't.
Yeah.
Question 10. What's your favorite spot to eat at in Colorado Springs? Because they've got everything out there.
June's Sushi. Eat there last night.
Okay, I'm going to let you off with that one because typically I don't eat seafood west of Richmond, Virginia, but I'll give you a sushi spot. But Coach Fraser, if there are folks out there that are interested in being part of this VIP campaign, whether it's at the U.S. Open and Greco World Team Trials up this coming weekend, or as we move forward to Paris, how can they contact you? How can they get involved with this donor and alumni base you're building at USA Wrestling?
They can contact me at sfraser@usawrestling.org. Love for them to contact me, and so I can help them in any way possible.
You are listening to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast with my daddy, Jason Bryant.
You hear that? Yep. Yeah, let's get rid of that. That was Steve Fraser screwing things up by picking Pong as his favorite video game, and there really isn't a Pong theme. It's just the sound of the doot, doot, doot. Interestingly enough, Rogue Amoeba, if you've got a Mac, Rogue Amoeba, I can't even say it, Rogue Amoeba actually has a screensaver that you can download that is Pong playing itself. It's the left side wins every hour, the right side wins every minute. So actually, if you've seen any of my computers at tournaments and I walk away from them, you'll see the Pong saver come up. So I actually play quite a bit of, I don't play any Pong. I just watch a bit of it. Back from Virginia, from the Virginia chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame induction banquet. That was on April 22nd in Glen Allen, just outside of Richmond, Virginia. The outstanding American went to one Anthony Buddy Lee, two-time All-American at my alma mater of Old Dominion, and a member of the 1992 Olympic team. Also going in were Bob and Ann Wood for lifetime service to wrestling. Gary Embry, Mel Artis, Ray Bousman, Jesse Castro, who is still currently coaching at Liberty, and some guy named, me. So I'd like to thank everybody that sent the well wishes off through the world of Facebook and Twitter. I actually was kind of keeping this one fairly quiet. And, those of you who know that I've got a little bit of an ego about things, of course, you kind of have to if you're producing 10 shows where you are the one talking. But when I got the letter, I got the phone call before I left for Brazil back in June. So I knew I was getting nominated. And some of the issue did circle around my age. At 37 years old, I am the youngest person to have received the lifetime service to wrestling. Now, there are younger people in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame or to be inducted. Cale Sanderson, for example, is 2 months older than I am. He is already in as a distinguished member. So there are people that are younger than me in the Hall of Fame. Let's not just say like I'm trying to parade myself around. But from a state chapter situation, in terms of lifetime service, I'm the youngest to receive this honor nationally, regardless of state. So I didn't really put this out there in social media. You read it here and there. People have mentioned it throughout, but I really didn't post the letter. I thought about it, and I just let it go. I was waiting through everything to get through, and John Graham from the Virginia Duels, who I grew up discovering the sport of wrestling through the city of Poquoson, and John Graham and his tournament at the Virginia Duels actually lived down the street from me when I was growing up. So thank the crew there. Nancy Perry, who is the state chapter director there, also a little bit of a Poquoson flavor there. I went to school with one of her kids, and her youngest son Matt was a couple years behind me, but he was a wrestler. He did pretty well for the Bull Islanders of Poquoson. So that's what I was doing this weekend. I was back home, got to see my family, spent some time with my parents, my sisters, my nieces. All nieces. That's what I got on that side of the family. 2 girls over there, and then I've got 2 girls, and then my wife's side of the family up in Minnesota. Yikes, they just kids are everywhere. So I got family members. I haven't figured out what their names are, and we've been married almost 7 years. So that's what I was doing. A little bit of meta going here, but just so many people. I had 6 minutes to give a speech, and Mike Ingrao, the MC, he is a referee who I actually kind of bust his chops a little bit for not calling stalling, but he was on the timer. So a problem with some speeches is you can never thank everybody. And if you thank everybody, you're just basically going to have a speech of 30 minutes of thanking everybody. But there's some teachers that came up that had a definite impact on my career, family members, friends, just coaches, pretty much the whole gamut. So I got an opportunity to go back, and it still hasn't really hit me yet as I'm looking over. I got the green jacket that you've seen the people who have received this award. So it was nice to bring my in-laws to see something like that, because sometimes people don't really get to see what I do on a daily basis or how it works out. So I'm thankful that I actually had the opportunity to bring my in-laws out to Virginia, check it out for the first time, and then to the banquet. My younger sister Kitty stepped up, giving us a place to stay. So shout out to you, Rat, for doing everything and making me and Abby's life very, very comfortable with traveling with a 4.5-year-old and a 9-month-old. So that's really all I've got. The Short Time Wrestling podcast for the next couple weeks is going to be a little dicey because I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I leave for Serbia on Sunday, April, whatever. Today is the 26th, 27th, 29th. I leave for Serbia. I will be in Serbia for about 10 days, and I will be the voice you hear at the European Championships on TrackWrestling.com's stream of the European Championships. So I'll be over there through May 8th. Hopefully I will have a chance to talk to guys like David Habit, who's wrestling for Slovenia, Boris Novachkov, who's wrestling for Bulgaria. There's going to be a couple other wrestlers with American ties that I want to try to talk to, see what we can do with some World Wrestling Resource shows. But Short Time, I'm going to have to play that one by ear. Maybe a travel blog, I don't know, because you've heard me talk about myself for the last 5 minutes. Anyway, that's how it is. So that's all I really got for you today. Again, I'd like to thank Steve Fraser for coming on the program, talking about the 10-year anniversary of the Greco-Roman World Championship team from Baku, Azerbaijan. Yep, that was a big one. That was my first time ever leaving the country, and I got to see a World Championship, and Steve talking about some of those memories and some of his own memories from the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles, kind of pulling for L.A. to get him in 2024 because, I'll be honest with you, I like traveling the world. Sometimes there's cities you just need to go see in the U.S. that I haven't spent a whole lot of time in L.A. I'm an Angels fan, so that's more Orange County, Anaheim. I'm still calling them California Angels. Got my season Angels hat ready to go. I did buy a Twins hat because I'll be going to more Twins games than I will be Angels games. And I also determined I'm probably not going to try to be the visiting fan when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come into U.S. Bank Stadium to play the Minnesota Vikings. If there's a time for me to go see a Bucs game in the regular season, I'm going to do it in Tampa. So, also, last thing I really need to talk to is if you are listening on SoundCloud, and if you are listening on SoundCloud, you might have already heard this announcement. I'm basically abandoning that as a platform for the Matt Talk Podcast Network. The company is hemorrhaging money. They really don't help podcasters. It's, it's got a cool player, but basically it is my 5th or 6th degree of distribution. So it gets the little traffic that it gets doesn't justify the price. So if you are a SoundCloud listener, I'm not just trying to say, I'm kicking you to the curb. No, there are so many different ways to listen to this show and the other shows on the Matt Talk Podcast Network. This show, I'm going to make it easy. If you got an iOS device, MattTalkOnline.com/GetShortTime. That takes you right to the Apple Podcast Store. They're no longer calling it iTunes for the podcast app. So it's Apple Podcasts. It's that purple thing on your iPhone. Now, if you do not like to use iTunes and you still like your iOS device, there are a couple podcatchers. There's also an app specifically for this show at MattTalkOnline.com/iOS app, or the Android app if you're in the Android atmosphere or atmosphere marketplace, whatever, Google Play, whatever. You get an Android device, MattTalkOnline.com/Android app. Now, last thing, I'm throwing a bunch of stuff at you. The newsletter, still growing. Let's see, we're about almost 900 people. 900 people get this list of articles every single day. That's pretty awesome. And you know what? You can get it too. You can be 901, 902, 903, MattTalkOnline.com/news. Sign up. It's free. You can opt out whenever you want. I'm not going to sell it to anybody. I might send you a link to a product like the Fargo Almanac or the preview guide or something like that. But that's few and far between. Now, if you like all this stuff, you like the shows, you like the apps, you like the newsletter, you like the other stuff that I bring to the table with the Matt Talk Podcast Network, would love your support in the way of a team membership through Patreon. Go to MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. See a couple different ways of contributing to the network. Cool gear and swag involved. That's all I got for you now. It is Wednesday, April 26th, and I think now the Pong thing sent me down the time suck that is YouTube. I watched Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and I think I'm going to go fire up the Raspberry Pi and do some retro gaming and play some Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and see if I can ever get past Mr. Sandman. Never in my life have I gotten past Mr. Sandman. Actually, last thing I want to add. Boise State has denied 2 interview requests. I asked Sports Information Director Joe Nickel for an interview last week. He replied and said that the AD has nothing more to say on the matter. I replied shortly after, basically saying that big boy decisions need big boy answers. And if I didn't really say it in that condescending manner, I'm basically said if the school wants to make adult decisions with adults, they need to answer adult questions. And then earlier this week, before I left Virginia to come back here to Minnesota, I sent another request outlining what I'm looking to do, and said there's questions that have not been answered. There's questions that the Idaho media has not hit. There's questions Flow Wrestling hasn't hit. There's questions the message boards haven't hit. There's some things that need to be answered here, and they're just like no. So can't really bleed a turnip. They don't want to talk. They want to hide behind their titles here. That's on them. And hey, you know what? Here's people who have denied interview requests to come on my show, and every time there's a drop, I usually ask the AD, and sometimes I don't always interview them, but a lot. And, even Kim Record, who at UNC Greensboro, never actually got her on the show, but she did agree to an interview. We just got caught in a time situation, and there were some things that didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. But Trev Alberts, yep, nothing to say. Well, anybody heard about Omaha since? Oh yeah, their hockey team did the thing, but nobody talks about Omaha. Yep. Piss on that. Pat Kilkenny, maybe he's got his degree, because maybe when he gets his degree, he can come on the show. Maybe he can actually graduate. Rich doesn't mean educated. So he said no. Thomas Bay at Fresno State, well, call that one a wash, because he never came on the show. He did plagiarize my Q&A and put it on their website, ignoring the questions that I needed answered during my years with Intermat. So now we got Fresno State back. So Mr. Bay, you can go take a flying leap. Grand Canyon's on that list. There aren't that many, folks, because even Cleveland State's John Perry came on the show to try to defend it. Anderson University's Bill DeAndre came on the show, tried to defend it. And you know what? I might be tough on these guys, and I might roast them, but you know what? It's always going to be educated and professional, and I think that's what Boise State is afraid of, is somebody asking educated and professional questions. I suspect that the folks at the Idaho Statesman are doing just that, but they're not doing it from maybe a wrestling standpoint. There's some questions here, and I think I got to give Andrew Spey a little bit of credit here on the story that chronicles the timeline of the Boise State drop, not necessarily the reporting beforehand. Got some issues that happened there, but the timeline there breaks out some things. That's on Flow Wrestling. It's also a link within the newsletter. The timeline, it breaks out some things, still questions that timeline does not answer. I want to know the influence the Mountain West had in this. I want to know, are there discussions with the other 5 ADs within the Pac-12, the 2 other affiliates and the 3 member schools of the Pac-12 for wrestling? Because this type of decision puts 5 other schools at risk. Were there any of those big boy decisions talked about at Boise State? No, if they were not, they were short-sighted and smugly arrogant about the needs of the other schools that their student athletes compete with. Those are 2 of the biggest issues that haven't been brought up yet. And I want Mr. Apsey on this program to answer those 2 questions specifically. How much did the Mountain West lobby for this? Because they need an extra baseball team. Here's why, because that means they can go to a different conference schedule, and they can get more non-conference games for baseball to try to raise their RPI and get what is usually a pretty terrible baseball league, a second bid to the postseason, to the Super Regionals, to the College World Series, the playoff system. Right now they're bad. They got to play each other like 21 times. They get it to the point where they get another team. They get 8. Okay, then they're down to 16? I think they open up. My numbers could be off here, but I know that there's an issue with the number of non-conference games these baseball schools in the Mountain West play, and they need to play better teams to get a better RPI. Yep, it's the arms race, and you know what? You're going to waste your money, and you're going to sit there and be like, no, we're not going to talk to you. Nope, we don't know anything about the Mountain West lobbying us to add baseball and dropping wrestling, because the Pac-12 has always looked down their nose at Mountain West teams, unless when it comes to expansion and things like that. So a lot of things on the table that aren't being discussed in the media. A lot of things that involve more than wrestling, and a lot of moving parts on how one program has now put 5 schools scrambling to make sure that they can still have a conference qualifier. So, Boise State, you screwed over a couple of teams here. Screwed over a couple of teams. Oh, wait, and you screwed over a couple athletes, like 2 dozen, 3 dozen athletes. Yeah. Waiting for you to come on the show. Be a big boy. Be a big boy. Man up. No, you're going to hide. You're going to hide? You've got something to hide if you're hiding. That's all I got to say. Thank you for spending your time with me. You've always got time for short time. I'm still not letting this one go, even though I'll be freaking in Serbia later.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.